Whenever you're ready to. On November 6, 2010, Marcy Weber was booked into the DuPage County Jail, where a bond hearing followed the next day. She was charged with first-degree murder and was set at a $5 million bond, and the victim, her 4-year-old daughter, Maggie Weber, found dead in her grandmother's bathtub with the words "Divine Mercy" written on the wall. According to the Chicago Tribune, Marcy Weber drugged the child with Benadryl and sleeping pills before attacking her. She used a 4-inch knife to fatally slash the girl's throat, all to keep her from being raped and sold as a sex slave over the internet. The wound was so immense that it severed Maggie's esophagus and grazed at her spine, almost decapitating the toddler. Looking at this recent story, how would you feel if this was your daughter or your sister? Should people who commit these crimes be able to follow the same procedures as any other crimes? The death penalty, also known as capital punishment, has been a historical part of American society since the days of our founding fathers. However, according to the Washington Post, the death penalty has dropped, or support for the death penalty has dropped, from 80% to 65% in the past decade. But from the questionnaire I handed out, 25% of the class believed the death penalty should be legalized, while 63% of the class was undecided. This leaves 13% of you not wanting to legalize the death penalty. And I understand your concern, but I want to point out that the only people who deserve the death penalty are those who commit murder and rape premeditatedly. Therefore, it is important that Congress establishes a separate death penalty court system for criminals who commit murder or rape. If we do, the safety of the public can be assured and hopefully lives will be saved. And lastly, with advanced DNA testing technology, thoughts about killing innocent people can be eliminated. First and foremost, if we legalize the death penalty, we can assure the safety of the public and probably save more lives. In the past few years, sophisticated social science techniques used by statisticians, such as panel sets and cross-sectional data sets, demonstrate that the death penalty does in fact save lives. Using state-level panel data from 1960 to 2000, Emory University professors Hesham Dashbach, Paul Rubin, and Joanna Shepard discovers that, on average, each execution resulted in 18 less murders. And the strength of these findings has caused some legal scholars, originally opposed to the death penalty on moral grounds, to rethink their case. In particular, Professor Cass R. Sistine from the University of Chicago has commented, if the recent evidence of deterrence is shown to be correct, the opponents of capital punishment will face an uphill struggle. I want to clarify, however, that there is little evidence to say that the death penalty deters crime. But according to Paul Rubin from Emory University, he states that even if the threat of execution does not deter criminals, it still is the case that a large body of evidence shows that increasing the probability and severity of punishment does, in general, deter crime. You all are still probably wondering, what if they execute an innocent person? I will tell you right now, with advances in technology, DNA testing has been available for deciding whether a criminal is guilty or not. In addition, Emma Maris from Nature News states that modern DNA tests have successfully exonerated some Virginia prisoners between 2002 and 2004. 3 were declared after tests were done on full biological samples. And you still have doubts about DNA testing? In the next few weeks, genetic testing of an old sample could show that Roger Keith Coleman, executed in 1992 for rape or murder, was not guilty. It will be the first time that genetic evidence is used to prove that the U.S. death penalty has killed an innocent person. But it is not just in the U.S. that DNA testing has been fully available. For example, DNA testing has finally been available in the Philippines. According to MCA de Hongria from the University of the Philippines, there was an urgent need to incorporate the use of DNA testing in reviewing capital cases in the Philippines. Until 1998, when DNA testing was introduced, Philippine judicial courts relied heavily on testimonies from the victims themselves, accusing these criminals. So in the future, the increasing use of DNA technology in the Philippines is expected to affect the lives of those who have been wrongly accused, as well as expediting the litigation of cases and providing closures to victims through the accurate identification of the real perpetrators of the crime. As I have mentioned before, DNA testing is effective in committing criminals. To elaborate, recently in 2008, in the US, 192 post-conviction DNA exonerations have been reported. 75% of these cases involve wrongful convictions due to errors in eyewitness identifications. So the role of DNA testing is greatly going to change the outcome of convicting criminals, not just in the US, but countries such as the Philippines in the near future. To recap what I have recently covered, legalizing the death penalty can save lives, and by saving more lives, the safety of the public can be assured. However, legalizing the death penalty does not guarantee that it will stop crime. Second, with advances in DNA technology, the probability of wrongfully committing someone for a crime can be greatly reduced. So what should America do in order to legalize the death penalty? My proposition for Congress and the U.S. judicial courts is to have them establish a separate court system that deals with criminals who specifically have committed murder and rape. Therefore, I want to make it clear that people who should receive the death penalty are those who commit murder and rape. So my point here is, if the judicial court establishes a separate court system for the crimes of murder and rape, inmates who receive the death penalty will also have less time on death row, which is the amount of time prisoners are kept before they are executed. According to Assistant Professor of Economics at Clemson University, Joanna Shepard states that many prisoners on death row try to delay their executions as long as possible, with multiple appeals and requests for stays. Joanna Shepard also found that from 1981 to 1999, the number of years criminals spent on death row has increased approximately one year in 1981 to almost 12 years in 1999. As you can see that increase in growth. But why do we need a separate court system? The main reason is that there are many flaws within our court system already that not many people pay attention to. For example, the multiple appeals criminals can push for can extend their death row time, which I recently have explained, and the plea of insanity, giving criminals a lesser punishment. But overall, my proposition is for Congress and the U.S. justice system to have them establish a separate court system that allows the death penalty for criminals who commit murder and rape premeditatedly. So what can we do to legalize the death penalty? Write a petition to Congress, gather supporters of the death penalty, and rally in front of the state legislation, and give them these reasons for why we should legalize the death penalty in all 50 states. With the death penalty legalized, the safety of the public can be assured, because more lives will be saved. In addition, the advances in technology have made DNA testing more available and reliable, changing the way we convict criminals of murder and rape. And lastly, we need Congress and the U.S. justice system to establish a separate court system that deals specifically with murder and rape, with the punishment of death. Remember little Maggie Weber? With the death penalty in effect, victims such as her can hopefully be saved. Eric Rosman from the Washington Post has said, "Capital punishment is an expression of society's moral outrage at particularly offensive conduct, and that justice demands equity as much as possible, and in some cases, that means the death penalty."